Hello and welcome to the ELT staff briefing for October. It's going to be a bit of a double act this time. I'm going to do the first few slides and then Mick will take over for the second half of the presentation. However, we're not in the same room together. We are in different bubbles in terms of our working arrangements. So I'm doing mine on Tuesday. And Mick will finish off the presentation when he's in college on Wednesday. The things we're going to cover in this briefing will be some points around arrangements that we're making for the half term and the period leading up to half term. Some information about the staff survey and about investors in people, which will be taking place soon. We've got an update on finance, and in particular on the year-end position for the 1920 year, which has now closed. An enrolment update, which Mick will pick up on with the rest of the things listed there, so quality update, some information around the World Skills UK Centre of Excellence, some pointers around the staff governor elections and around the advice events that will be taking place over the course of this term. In terms of half-term arrangements, just maybe before I go on to talk about the steps that we're putting in place, really a big thank you to all staff for all the hard work that people are doing at the moment to help us in these very strange and unusual and challenging times that we're going through. The work that staff are doing, the feedback that staff are giving to us to help us to keep making continuous improvements in the way that the college is responding to the current situation really is invaluable. So really a big thank you to all staff for doing that. Please continue to use all of the ways of communication that we've publicised previously. So there's still things like the COVID email address, the FAQ email address that people can send questions to us about. There's the notification forms for informing us about any positive tests or symptoms being exhibited by either members of staff or by learners. And people really are using that very well, and we're getting the information that we need to take the actions that we need to take in all of those cases. So please keep using all of those ways of letting us know what's going on. But also importantly, just a reminder, and I'm sure people are well aware of this, if you are showing symptoms linked to COVID-19, so that's high temperature, continuous new cough, or a sudden loss of taste or smell, then really do not attend the workplace. You may still feel able to do work remotely, but you must not come into college. Instead, seek a test for coronavirus. And equally well, if you live in a household with somebody who has those symptoms or have themselves tested positive, again, you should be into a self-isolation period. So just an important reminder that these are very simple things that we can all do to try to slow down the transmission of what is still a very active virus around the whole community. With that in mind, we've decided to make a few changes to the way that we will handle the approach to half-term and the half-term week itself. Obviously, there's continuing to be lots of rumours about whether governments in the UK or whether in particular parts of the UK will implement the circuit breakers or mini lockdowns for a short period of time. And clearly we don't know what the governments are going to decide to do. But it seemed to us that it would be a sensible idea to try and take a little bit of pressure off the amount of social contact that is going on as a result of people mixing within college, take a little bit of the pressure off some of the transport networks, whether that's public transport or just the general motorway and road networks. And really importantly, try to give us a way of testing whether the things that we've got in place for remote learning would stand the test if we had to go back into a period of a wider lockdown, such as we had in March, April and onwards. Obviously, nobody wants that to be the case, but really we need to assure ourselves that we can cope with that situation if we needed to. And so the idea is for that week prior to the half-term holiday, so the week commencing the 19th of October, we will shift largely to a remote learning and working model. And we hope that that will give us that experience of ensuring that at any point in the year, if we needed to move more rigorously to remote working, we could handle that without impacting massively on the work that the college does. The half-term week itself clearly will be a bit of a holiday period for many people. For those people not on leave, again, we would look to designate that as a working from home, remote working scenario. Again, just to test our ability to cope with the needs of remote working, should that become a greater expectation going forward. I say many people in that half-term period will probably be on leave anyway. And as a reminder for staff taking leave during the half-term period, clearly we would want those leave periods to be booked on iTrent in the normal way. And importantly for this particular period of time, if anybody is planning any overseas travel, it's important that that is discussed in advance with your relevant head of to ensure that that is something which could be accommodated if there was any need for a quarantine arrangement to be put in place. The number of countries now where people can travel to and from the UK without a need to quarantine is very small. I think it's about half a dozen at the last count. So clearly for most countries there is already a quarantine in place, and the question would need to be asked about whether that could be handled through normal working arrangements. But also, even those countries where a quarantine is not already in place, we've seen that these things can change very quickly with very little notice. And again, we just need to look at the ramifications if somebody was to go on an overseas trip and then a quarantine was put in place at short notice. How would the college cope with that? Is the person in a role where remote working would be a realistic possibility for a 2-week quarantine period? Or would there be the potential for an extended period of leave if that wasn't an option? But it's important for everybody concerned that those discussions take place in advance so that there are no surprises should the worst come to the worst. Inevitably, there will be some exceptions to all of that. So whilst we intend that that 2-week period will be a time when the college is not closed, but the amount of activity going on in the campus itself would be much more limited than usual. But there will be some exceptions. Exams is one obvious one, as is the need to keep supporting some of our high needs learners. And those will be discussed between heads of, line managers and the affected staff to make sure that that can continue to operate as normal. But for most people, we are looking at this being that 2-week period being a remote working period of time. Staff survey for 1920, so going back to the survey that was undertaken over the summer. Firstly, a big thank you to all the staff that took the time to complete the survey and ensure that we got the information that we need to understand how staff are feeling about various issues and whether there's actions that we can take to try and address some of those. The results will be communicated fully to staff later this week, so I'm not going to go into what the results are in any great level of depth at the moment. Just to say, really, overall, the results were quite positive. I think in terms of the comparator colleges who also took part in the survey, we came across very positively and very well. So I think that's a good sign for how things are going within the college. The feedback from the survey and from the staff voice meetings that we continue to have between individual members of ELT and staff groups, they're really important ways for us to get information, to have a two-way conversation, and contribute to how the future shape of the college will look. As an example of that, I'm going to say a little bit in a moment about some of the You Said We Did information that we've been developing. We've given updates in the past. We'll continue to do that, and I've got some reminders in the next couple of slides. But also, importantly, just a reminder, we are just beginning the process for going back through our accreditation for investors in people. There will be a survey and some focus groups that will be launched over the course of the next few weeks. So please take the time to contribute to the survey. If you're selected to go into a focus group, again, please make the time to take part in that process and give us your honest feedback about how you feel the college is operating and where any potential areas for improvement may be. On You Said We Did, and probably useful just to remind staff about some of these things in readiness for that Investors in People survey that will take place. There's been a number of suggestions made over the course of the last year or so, and some of the things that we've tried to respond to. Firstly, about computers, and sometimes they're slow and there might need to be greater investment in college technology. The refreshed IT strategy that was put in place partly as a result of that feedback coming to us has really very quickly paid dividends. Moving into lockdown would have been so much more difficult, if not impossible, without some of the investments that we undertook around about 6 to 9 months ago in terms of improvements to college IT infrastructure and the equipment that's been put in place. And really that has paid for itself, I think, several times over already, let alone the continued improvements that we'll continue to see over the next period of time. There was also comments about the need for incremental pay scales for business support staff and managers in a similar way to the way that teaching staff would have the access to increments on a year-by-year basis. Again, we implemented the pay framework from the 1st of January to take that into account, and so there now are opportunities for pay progression each year for all staff within the college. Really important in terms of recognising the efforts that people are making. There's also comments made about wanting to see the college offer some additional support towards staff mental health. And a number of things being put in place. We signed up to the AOC Mental Health and Wellbeing Charter. There's been additional training. There's been mandatory training for all staff. There's a confidential counselling line that we've made available and public to staff. And we've continued to try to update people through global emails about the resources that are available to them on an ongoing basis. So I think a lot of actions, still more that we can do and will continue to do, but I think good progress being made. A good demonstration of how effective staff feedback helps us to improve. The last slide for me is an update on the financial position in terms of the year 1920. The audit of the final accounts for 1920 is just about to begin, and subject to the completion of that process, the outturn position is actually looking a lot more positive than we originally feared at the start of lockdown. We were potentially looking at the possibility of some quite large deficits at that point in time back in March. And that led to a lot of hard work going on, lots of people across the college making a contribution to that work. And as it's turned out, we've actually done a little bit better in terms of the bottom line performance than we'd even originally budgeted for. The 1920 original budget was for a surplus of £295,000. That seemed a million miles away when the college, when everybody went into lockdown back in March. Our ability to keep earning income was really in serious doubt at that time, and we really were fearful for what the overall position might turn out to be. But as I say, a lot of hard work went into ensuring that that was minimised to the best extent possible. We continued to earn significant amounts of our income Apprenticeships stood up a lot better than we perhaps had expected it to when we first went into lockdown. We did still end of the year with £1.5 million less income than we'd originally budgeted for, but we were also able to make some compensating savings to ensure that that did not affect the overall performance of the college. A lot of those savings were directly linked to the fact that the college buildings weren't being occupied, and so there were some fairly natural savings that were being made. But nonetheless, people worked really hard. All budget holders across the college really had a very close look at their own budget lines, really looked to take away anything that was not essential during that sort of 5-6 month period towards the end of the year, and enabled us to end the year with a performance which is pretty much in line with budget, actually a bit better than it. And in the circumstances, I think is a massive, massive achievement. I think everybody across the college should be proud of that, because in some way or other, everybody has contributed to achieving what is a very successful outcome, and an outcome which gives us some financial strength moving into the next year and beyond, when things will continue to be hard, but we will have a good base from which to build. So I say a big thank you to all involved. I will now virtually hand over to Mick, who will magically appear and I will disappear. So thank you for your time, and Mick will now take over.
Thank you very much, Simon. Eloquent as ever. Now, I believe it took you 4 takes to deliver your elements of this presentation. I'm going to try and do this in one, so let's see how we get on today. So firstly, I just want to provide colleagues with an update on the key enrolment processes for this academic year. Firstly, I'd just like to reinforce a degree of thanks to everybody who contributed to massively transitioning our enrolment processes this year. I think we're all in agreement that the virtual enrolment events were really, really positive in relation to the college and how we manage that situation. In relation to 16 to 18 learners, we've made a really positive start to the year from an enrolment perspective, and we currently have 1,708 learners on programme, which is already 18 learners above our target. Now, we are currently operating within that first 42-day period, whereby learners do, unfortunately, sometimes withdraw early and change their minds. But equally, we continue to enrol learners who might have started at another college and are coming to join us. But as it stands right now, we're really confident that we will exceed our overall target this year of 1,690 learners. We do continue to recruit throughout the year, and our offer allows us to do that. But we also have a partnership with the Prince's Trust, and they will recruit learners throughout the year, normally around 100 or 110 learners that will add to the overall college numbers. So from a 16 to 18 perspective, really positive outlook. In relation to apprenticeships, when we did our curriculum planning and business planning through the period of April through to the summer this last year, apprenticeships was the area of curriculum that we were really concerned about in relation to the impact of the pandemic and how employers would respond to the changing markets within which they operate. So it's fair to say that at the point of planning, we were prudent and pretty cautious in the way we planned our curriculum and numbers for apprenticeships this year. You can see there on the slide that as it stands right now at the end of September, we've actually enrolled 124 new apprentices to the college against an initial target of 66, which is again really positive performance and testament to some good engagement with employers and with the prospective apprentices themselves. We are mindful, however, that with apprenticeships we continue to recruit throughout the year, and we do have a fairly substantive target of recruitment for the October period, and the teams are working really hard to carry that through, but nonetheless a really positive start. Again, for those of you that work with adult learners, you'll notice and feel that the provision, generally speaking, is very buoyant and very vibrant across the college, with good adult learners enrolling across the vast majority of our programmes. We have identified some programmes that in September didn't recruit to target, but we already have action plans in place within which to counter that situation over the course of this academic year. Based on our September intake, however, we are confident that we will deliver to contract in this academic year. The adult market is a really important one for us this year. Our place as that key technical community provider is important in supporting adults who need to retrain, upskill in response to the pandemic and potential job losses is going to be really quite critical. And whilst the government have recently announced additional funding to support adults in achieving level 3 qualifications, we're still awaiting the detail on how that will impact us, but we will proactively plan to deliver effectively against any new targets that come our way. In relation to HE and higher skills, again, a really positive start. We've achieved our learning number targets on substantive full-time programmes, and on our part-time HE courses, recruitment is also strong and we're delivering against positive numbers. Of course, within HE, not only do we have our higher education programmes, we do deliver higher apprenticeships and also some technical level 4, level 5 programmes. And again, we've had some good early indicators in these areas. I'm particularly pleased to report, for example, that within the ILM provision, level 5 leadership and management, we have just landed a substantive contract as being the preferred provider for Blackpool Council and are going to deliver to up to 60 of their staff over these coming months, which is a really big step forward for us as a provider. So overall, from an enrolment perspective, across all provision types, we have made a solid start to this year. Of course, we have to monitor provision closely in response to the ongoing pandemic, but we're really pleased with the progress that we've made to date. A few dates for your diaries now, in that we've recently agreed a new approach to the college staff development days and agreed a structure of how we want to deliver those positively for all over this next academic year. So the dates that have been penciled in for staff development days are there on the board, and you'll see that each day has a particular focus which will hopefully allow suitable time for reflection in terms of our current and ongoing challenges, but also in terms of positive development activities about how we're going to continually improve as a college moving forward. You'll see the date in March is quite an important one, following on from the success of our DigiFest in the last academic year, which you'll remember we delivered just before we went into lockdown, and it was really useful in the way in which we then went on to engage our learners and each other whilst operating from home. So DigiFest will happen again as part of a wider teaching and learning conference in March. I also want to highlight and point out that we've already scheduled a date on the 17th of August in the next academic year, and we're really going to have an Ofsted focus within that session, understanding now that our detailed planning for potential Ofsted visits really needs to start to take shape, and we need to be well prepared for any activity from their perspective. I also want to point out that whilst we've shifted from inset to staff development days by means of title, we are also promoting a shift in approach. In order for us to deliver and achieve our 5-year plan targets of becoming that outstanding provider, it's really important that we adopt a culture and continue to promote a culture of continuous improvement. And in supporting that and helping us move along our way, from the 16th of October, we are going to launch a brand new carousel of CPD activity. Hopefully they'll be accessible to staff from across the college, but it'll be delivered in bite-sized sessions, and we're really targeting that 4:30 to 5 p.m. slot, almost on a daily basis, to allow for that continuous improvement to happen. I just touched upon Ofsted in the previous slide when looking at the staff development days, and I do want to just reinforce that whilst Ofsted have taken a decision to not continue with their normal inspection frameworks at this time, they are quite active right now in the FE sector in undertaking interim and monitoring visits in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm very aware that over the last few weeks they've been visible in 3 Lancashire colleges, and we just have to make sure that we're prepared should they decide that they want to test and see how we're doing in relation to supporting our learners through this challenging period. So interim visits can happen and will happen with similar short notice to a full inspection, and if we are visited, there will just be a focus in the main around meetings with leaders, managers and staff in ensuring that we're supporting our learners against those 3 key themes available there. What the interim visits won't do, and this is quite important for us in understanding their place within the sector right now, they won't result in a grade. So an interim visit isn't about testing whether we're still a good or an outstanding provider, it's just testing how well we're supporting our learners at this time. So it won't change our grade, it won't be full inspection based against the full ELT as it stands. It won't be a process whereby Ofsted inspectors are sitting in sessions and testing teaching and learning assessment. It will be a discussion process just to test how well the sector and ourselves are continuing to provide for our learners during this difficult period. Some really good news to report, and hopefully you saw this in the recent staff update that was circulated 2 weeks ago. But Preston's College have been recently successful in applying for and achieving status as a recognised World Skills UK Centre of Excellence. This is quite a prestigious award in that we had to apply, and we were one of only 20 providers selected nationally to be part of this, and that's a really good achievement, even more so in that there are no other Lancashire colleges right now who are part of this programme. The Centre of Excellence will run for 3 years, and the ambition of the programme is to improve technical skills-based learning using the resources that World Skills UK have to their availability in terms of their skills practitioners and their international networks, whilst it's also going to be important that the 20 colleges selected in the programme share their skills and expertise in delivering outstanding technical education. We're currently in the process of recruiting 5 World Skills UK skills champions within the college. The closing date is this Friday, and we're looking for 1 member of staff from across each of the 5 technical schools that we have within the college. The programme will then go live with some staff CPD in November, and then we'll start to work with our partner providers from January this year. But a fantastic achievement, an exciting progression for the college, and it just reinforces our place as that really strong technical provider nationally. In relation to governance at the college, we're in a process now where our existing staff governors have come to the end of their terms, and shortly we will be advertising posts or positions for new staff governors to take up their opportunities to support the governance of the college, the decision making, the test, the challenge, the rigour of our ongoing performance. And we will be looking for a member of staff and business support and a member of staff from our academic teams in fulfilling these roles. Further details can be made available through direct conversation with the clerk to the governing body, Claire Rayner, and her information is available on the bottom of this slide if you're interested. And finally, just to reinforce that throughout this pandemic, we've really valued and continue to value good communication with our staff teams, and we're trying our best always to respond quickly and positively to any information that's provided to us by means of either improving provision or enhancing safety measures within the college, etc. So I would just like to reinforce, please use the FAQ email address if you have any questions, queries, concerns, any positive stories that you want to share. It's really important that we maintain healthy communication during this period. And generally speaking, it'd be remiss to end this session without thanking everybody for their continued efforts, determination, enthusiasm, care and guidance for each other and for students at this challenging time. We really are performing well as a college in response to the pandemic, and we must continue to do this as this pandemic continues to challenge us. Thank you very much. Have a great day. See you later.